Yesterday I talked about the shootings of these boats, the bombing of these boats off the coast of Venezuela. But I may have buried that story because I was also talking about Kristi Noem, the puppy killer in chief, and I may have digressed a little from the point that I thought was really important. And that is the question of whether or not the actions that were taken by our military in bombing these boats and then allegedly sending in a second bomb to kill civilians who had been in that boat, who were clinging to debris of some kind in order to keep from drowning, and they sent in a second strike and blew them to pieces. And allegedly Pete Hegseth, the god of war, said, kill them all. Now, if he said that in response to a question of, do we go back and bomb the survivors, and he said, kill them all, then Pete Hegseth committed a war crime. You don't kill helpless civilians. That's not only a violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, it's a violation of international law. It's a war crime, and it's punishable by death. Just think about that. Punishable by death. Now, if Pete Hegseth only gave the one order, kill them all, that's still a violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's still a violation of international law. It's still a war crime. Why? Because the clear implication of that is, whatever you have to do, kill every one of them. So if the admiral who was in charge of that operation said, my directive is to kill them all, and I have to, and they didn't all die in the first strike, so I've got to use a second strike because my mission, as dictated to me by the god of war, is to kill everybody. Now, what that means is they were killing helpless people. So that's as bad as taking POWs, people who were surrendering, and killing them. The Japanese did that to some of our soldiers in World War II, and they were tried for that, and they were convicted, and they were executed. And that was in war. That assumes the justification the administration has been giving here is that this is actually war, and that we're at war with the drug smugglers from Venezuela. Like, you don't go to war against criminals. You go to war against a country. We have no declaration of war against Venezuela. So it wasn't an act of war, and if it's not an act of war, what they were doing was killing civilians on the high seas. That's also a crime. You know what we call that crime? It's called murder. Also punishable by death. So the admiral that carried out the strikes, and these other people who've been carrying out these strikes, are arguably war criminals themselves for following those illegal orders. It's a perfect example of what you're not supposed to do, and everybody knows that. What they've been doing for years before this was stopping these I want to say intersections, but whatever it is, stopping these boats and saying, we want permission to board. We suspect you have drugs. And if the people on these boats start shooting, then the U.S. Coast Guard or whoever it is that stopped them has the right to fire back. But they don't have a right to go in and say, we suspect you've got drugs and we're not even going to talk to you about it, we're just going to blow you out of the water. That's a violation of U.S. law. And common sense tells you that. And we've never done that before this administration came in with the god of war who wants to show how tough he is, giving these orders. So, and this is particularly for my Republican friends. If you're a Republican, I want you to listen to this. If you have friends who are Republicans, I want you to talk to them. Senator Wicker from Mississippi, Republican. He's the chair of the Armed Services Committee. He is a right-wing Republican. He's been a straight MAGA guy right down the line. He said that if the reports are true about what Pete Hegseth said and or what the admiral in charge did in terms of giving the order, and frankly the people who carried out the orders, that those are acts, that those are criminal acts. He said that. Now this was the leading Republican, one of the leading Republicans in the Senate, the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee made that statement, a Republican. What does that tell you? It tells you that legitimate Republicans, the kind that Trump always said he hated so much, they are finally finding some courage and they're speaking out. And if you're a Republican, I want you to keep this in mind. This is what happens when you just knee-jerk vote Republican every time. You get people who take advantage of you and take advantage of that fact, and they do whatever the hell they damn well please. Finally, Republicans are speaking out, so don't listen to me. Listen to Senator Weicker. Listen to Don Bacon, the congressman from Nebraska, who said the same thing. Listen, Republican, prominent Republican. There's also Mike Turner from Ohio, another prominent Republican, a conservative from Ohio, said the same thing that Don Bacon said the same thing that Senator Weicker said. So these are Republicans, prominent Republicans, who are looking at this thing and saying, more important than Trump, more important than loyalty to the God of war, is that we uphold the Constitution and the rule of law, and particularly as it relates to the military. And this is why Kelly and these others came out and made these statements that they made, because they were getting all kinds of feedback and questions from people in the military saying, what do we do? They're telling us to do things that we think are patently illegal. What's our obligation? What are our rights? Where do we go from here? And so they were basically telling these people, we've got your back. You stand up for what's right. You know what's right, because these are not close questions. These are not subtle issues of military law. This is blatant. You see a helpless person standing there, drowning in the ocean, and you bomb them? You don't have to be a JAG officer to understand that. And speaking of JAG officers, this is the thing that really got me. Those of you who know me know that I worked for JAG as a civilian equivalent of a major. More significantly, my dad was the Judge Advocate General of the Air Force Communications Service. He retired as a full colonel and stayed on as the civilian equivalent of a brigadier general, because it's the Judge Advocate General office. So at the top of the Air Force JAG, you have the Judge Advocate General, and then you have 5 people below him, the Deputy Judge Advocate General, and then the heads of these 6 people, five major air commands. My father was one of those. So I was particularly galled when I saw that the God of War fired all of the top JAG officers in all of the services. He fired them all. Well, recently that whole group got together, and they are like the ex-JAG officers, and they submitted an analysis of the legality of what was taking place in the Caribbean, and to a person. All of these people, and I have a lot of respect for JAG officers, in particular Judge Advocate Generals, because my dad was one, but also because I knew Judge Advocate Generals growing up. These were among the most principled people in the military, Lindsey Graham being the notable exception. And those people, to a man, understood the rules of combat, as frankly does any GI, understood the rules of combat, and they were advising, and would have advised, according to this declaration they just presented, they would have advised the heads of whoever it was that was supposed to carry out these orders, that doing so was an act of war, was a violation of the international law, was a violation of the Code of Military Justice, and could subject the person who carried out these orders to the death penalty. That's what they would have told them. And if those people had gotten that advice from the Judge Advocate General of whichever service they were in, they would have backed off immediately, which is what happened when Trump went over and started to get the National Guard to shoot the legs of demonstrators across the street from the White House. Fortunately, he had General Milley with him, who said, there's no way. That's a violation of the Code of Military Justice, and we have to follow the law, Mr. President. That would be an illegal order. That's an illegal order, and we're not going to obey it. That's what would have happened if they hadn't fired all of the Judge Advocate Generals that would have given that advice, and who knows what their replacements are, but you can be damn sure that they vetted those replacements so that the replacement would uphold any decisions made by the God of War. So this is where we are in this country today, and if you're a Republican and you care about this country, and I know many of you do, and I know most of you are principled people, you need to stop and look at what's happening to your party. And right now, the only solution you have is to start voting for Democrats. Hopefully they're the right kind of Democrats. I think I am, because I am sympathetic to your views on many issues. I'm still a Democrat, proud to be a Democrat. I think the Democrats are the best for stability, but we've had a run with some Democrats with whom I vehemently disagree. I consider them on the far left. It's time for moderates to take back the government, and right now the only moderates are people like Don Bacon and Senator Wicker and Turner, Congressman Turner. Those people represent the best of the Republican Party, but unfortunately they're in the minority. So the only choice most of you have is to vote for a moderate Democrat. Make sure it's a moderate Democrat. Make sure it's not somebody who's an extremist. Moderate Democrat who's going to do the things that matter to all of us who care about this country and who are moderate in our views, but legitimately care about the law, upholding the rule of law, and doing the morally right thing, for crying out loud.